Today I want to talk to you about the part that resistant starch could be playing in your symptoms. If your symptoms are continuing, even though you know that you're doing everything right on the low Fodmap diet, then it really is time to have a look at resistant starch. Resistant starch resists digestion and passes through the large intestine where it acts like a dietary fibre, which you know ferments. Now, this is now thought of as the third type of fibre, along with soluble and insoluble fibre. But let me first explain a little about the two starches, amylopectin starch and amylose starch. Amylopectin starch, it's easy to digest and absorb. It gelatinizes easily when heated in water, and gelatinized starch is easier to digest. The digestive enzyme amylase can quickly break down amylopectin into glucose, and we know that glucose is rapidly absorbed. On the other hand, amylose starch is more difficult to digest and absorb. It's more difficult for it to gelatinize, and that makes the digestion by the amylase enzyme difficult. In general, foods that contain more amylopectin, which has a higher glycemic index, such as jasmine rice, short grain sticky rice, which you might also know as sushi rice, as well as some varieties of potatoes, such as red waxy ones, are much easier to digest and absorb than foods containing amylose, which has got the lower glycemic index, such as basmati rice, most long grain rice except for jasmine rice, pasta, most wheat, corn, oat and barley products, most potatoes and bananas. Now the wheat and barley don't concern us because they're high Fodmap, but the others may concern us. And as you can see, this doesn't bode very well for those of you who have to be on a low glycemic diet. Resistant starch has been categorized into 4 types. There's RS1, which is physically inaccessible or indigestible resistant starch, which is found in things like seeds or legumes and also in unprocessed whole grains. Then there's RS2, which is resistant starch that occurs in its natural granular form, such as in uncooked potatoes, green bananas, and high amylose corn. RS3 is resistant starch that's formed when starch-containing foods are cooked and cooled, such as legumes, bread, cornflakes, potatoes, pasta salads. Now this occurs due to retrogradation, which is when dissolved starch becomes less soluble after being heated and dissolved in water and then cooled. I'm going to talk about this again in a moment. Now the last starch is RS4, starches that have been chemically modified to resist digestion, and this type of resistant starch can have a wide variety of structures and they're not found in nature. But let's go back to RS3 resistant starch. That's the one that occurs when certain starch containing foods are cooked and cooled, and something called retrogradation happens. Now retrogradation is a reaction that takes place in gelatinized starch when the amylose and the amylopectin chains realign themselves and they cause the liquid to gel. When native starch is heated and dissolves in water, the crystalline structure of amylose and amylopectin molecules is lost and they hydrate. That means they take on water to form a viscose solution, which is fine for us. But if that viscose solution is cooled and left at lower temperatures for a long enough period, the amylose and amylopectin molecules retrograde and rearrange themselves again back into the more crystalline structure, which is what they had at the beginning. And that's what makes these foods hard to digest. So to summarize, if you think resistant starch may be your issue, avoid bananas, corn and cornstarch, oats, frozen green peas, cold pasta, cold potato, long grain rice except for jasmine, basmati rice, most potatoes except for red waxy ones, seeds and nuts, and also avoid cooling and then reheating starches. So this is a good one for you to look at if you really are still having problems even after taking care of all those things that I mentioned in the video about mistakes you could still be making. This is another area, unfortunately, for those of you that have to be on a low glycemic index diet. This as I said before, is not good news, because most of those starches that you can have are the ones that are resistant starches and could be causing you problems with your IBS. Right, so hopefully for some of you this is good news, and we'll sort out that last little piece of the puzzle that you haven't been able to sort. And for the rest of you, it's just something to watch out for, especially with that cooling and reheating of foods. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.